the poisons, the toxins that I've been referring to, a system that allows people to be coerced into a provisionally approved medical procedure in order to keep their jobs is not sustainable. I think that...
What's not sustainable? The fact that the government does it is not sustainable?
The system itself, because let's take the healthcare system, for example, over the past couple of years. Doctors have been forced to only provide advice to their patients if it doesn't undermine the national vaccination rollout. The medical regulator came out March 2021 and said any doctor who compromises the government's national vaccine rollout will be disciplined. And indeed that happened. Doctors who gave out exemptions to COVID vaccines, i.e. in their professional judgment, they said, I think that medically you should not receive this medical product. They were suspended and deregistered. Doctors who just said to their patients, there are doctors I speak to who just said, hey, be careful. Or maybe they spoke to members of their community and they said, I think you should be careful. Or they spoke to pregnant women and said, there hasn't been really any studies to show safety in pregnancy. You should be careful. They were deregistered. What does that do? It leads to the disillusionment of doctors themselves. There are new bodies of doctors popping up who are very dissatisfied with the way that the medical regulator and the various national boards have been treating doctors, and they're starting to go off and do their own thing.
Like, and it also, you're talking about AMPS and Collateral Global and these organisations.
Yep. And it also leads to disillusionment with the healthcare system. People don't trust the medical system anymore. People are saying, I don't trust any pharmaceutical medicine now. I don't want to go to the hospital. I don't want to go to the doctor. I'm traumatized because of the way I've been treated. I've been injured, right? A lot of people I speak to have been seriously injured by the COVID-19 vaccines, and they only got them because they would have lost their job if they didn't get them.
It's funny that they are all lumped into... They've had a vaccine and they're now anti-vaxxers by media standards. How representative is this attitude, though? Not just of vaccine, but of broken trust in institutions, power structures, especially medical ones, health ones. Are you talking about 10%, 5% of the population, or do you think it's broader than that? Because when I look around, I am concerned that the big majority of the country, 60% plus, are very happy to go along with whatever Carl Stefanovic says or Alan Langdon says on Channel 9.
Yeah.
And she has said some whoppers.
I see a and I don't know if this is a good thing. I mean, I think this might be a bad thing, but I see a polarization going on where you've got people who are really betting into, let's say, a certain narrative, desperate not to let go of the dogma that COVID-19, to use that example, was a deadly pandemic, and that lockdowns were necessary and effective, and that vaccine mandates were necessary and effective, and that we should also all wear masks, and anyone else is crazy. And people who, if I frame it, people on the other side who have become distrustful of the medical system, distrustful of government, they are now looking for alternative sources of information. They might be setting up their own systems. They might be removing their kids from school. They might be moving rurally, growing their own food. They're really changing their perspective and their life. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. In the case of absolutism, parallel systems always arise. That's a historical norm that has always occurred. I think that my personal view is that that's a good thing, because I am not a huge fan of, for example, the proliferation of pharmaceutical products in our society. I would prefer it personally if people focused a little bit more on what we can do for ourselves to prevent medical conditions, rather than relying on pharmaceutical products to compartmentarily treat symptoms of those conditions. If everybody ate a little bit healthier and exercised a little bit more and got a little bit more sun,
solve a lot of things.
It would solve a lot of things.
It's too hard though, mate.
Well, self-responsibility is hard, but it's also very empowering once you step into it a little bit. So I don't think it's a bad thing, because I think that our society has become quite corrosive and a little bit too dependent on quick fixes like pharmaceutical medicines, that we've become a bit too comfortable working in meaningless jobs that aren't really achieving anything productive other than for the 1% at the top who are earning a lot of money from them.
So you see this departure or bifurcation.
Yeah.
Where does that end up though? Because when you say historically parallel not societies, but parallel movements always. I mean, this is just basic markets, really. Just even before capitalism, it's just competition of ideas, experimentation in life. And inevitably, you see empires rise and fall as parallel structures form. If you look at what you've just described, like a pharmaceutical, profit-driven, authority structure, ministry of truth type thing that we see going on with one side you described that are buying into a dogma, that feels very shaky to me. Like, you can't maintain lockdown culture. It relies on everyone not asking questions.
Yes. That's why it's not sustainable. And the people who bed into that position can only do so for so long, because it's painful and it's destructive. It's unhealthy. It's eventually self-evidently useless as well. There's no utility to lockdowns, for example, right? If you look at the results from societies that implemented lockdowns versus those that didn't, it's very clear very quickly that there was no positive effect of lockdowns. There was only negative impacts, which everybody now pretty much acknowledges.
You think that will become the mainstream position eventually, that lockdowns were not a good idea in hindsight?
Yes. I think the truth always comes out. What might happen is there might be a distortion of what happened as well. That has happened, for example, with pharmaceutical products in the past, where to give you an example, I don't know if I want to go into this.
We don't have to. I can change the topic.